The Law of One, Book 2, Part 15. Ra. I am Ra. This is precisely correct. Questioner. Thank you. From this, I would extrapolate to the conjecture that the orientation in mind of the entity is the only thing that is of any consequence at all. The physical catalyst that he experiences, regardless of what is happening about him, will be a function strictly of his orientation in mind. I will use as an example deleted, this being a statement of the orientation in mind governing the catalyst. Is this correct? Ra. I am Ra. We prefer not to use any well-known examples, sayings, or adages in our communications to you due to the tremendous amount of distortion which any well-known saying has undergone. Therefore, we may answer the first part of your query, asking that you delete the example. It is completely true to the best of our knowledge that the orientation or polarization of the mind-body-spirit complex is the cause of the perceptions generated by each entity. Thus, a scene may be observed in your grocery store. The entity ahead of itself may be without sufficient funds. One entity may then take this opportunity to steal. Another may take this opportunity to feel itself a failure. Another may unconcernedly remove the least necessary items, pay for what it can, and go about its business. The one behind the self, observing, may feel compassion, may feel an insult because of standing next to a poverty-stricken person, may feel generosity, may feel indifference. Do you now see the analogies in a more appropriate manner? Questioner. I think that I do. Then from this I will extrapolate the concept, which is somewhat more difficult because, as you have explained before, even fourth density positive has the concept of defensive action, but above the level of fourth density, the concept of defensive action is not in use. The concept of defensive action and offensive action are very much in use in our present density. I'm assuming that if an entity is polarized strongly enough in his thought in a positive sense, that defensive action is not going to be necessary for him because the opportunity to apply defensive action will never originate for him. Is this correct? Ra. I am Ra. This is unknowable. In each case, as we have said, an entity able to program experiences may choose the number and the intensity of lessons to be learned. It is possible that an extremely positively oriented entity might program itself, situations testing the ability of self to refrain from defensive action, even to the point of the physical death of self or other self. This is an intensive lesson, and it is not known, shall we say, what entities have programmed. We may, if we desire, read this programming. However, this is an infringement, and we choose not to do so. Questioner. I will ask you if you are familiar with a motion picture called The Ninth Configuration. Are you familiar with this? Ra. I am Ra. We scan your mind and see this configuration called The Ninth Configuration. Questioner. This motion picture brought out the point about which we have been talking. The colonel had to make a decision. I was wondering about his polarization. He could have knuckled under, you might say, to the negative forces, but he chose to defend his friend instead. Is it possible for you to estimate which is more positively polarizing? To defend the positively oriented entity or to allow suppression by the negatively oriented entities? Ra. I am Ra. This question takes in the scope of fourth density as well as your own, and its answer may best be seen by the action of the entity called Jehoshua. which you call Jesus. This entity was to be defended by its friends. The entity reminded its friends to put away the sword. This entity then delivered itself to be put to physical death. The impulse to protect the loved other self is one which persists through the fourth density, a density abounding in compassion. More than this we cannot and need not say. Questioner: thank you. As we near the end of this master cycle, there may be an increasing amount of catalyst for entities. I'm wondering if, as the planetary vibrations mismatch somewhat with the fourth density vibrations, and catalyst is increased, if this will increase more polarization, thereby getting a slightly greater harvest. Ra: I am Ra. The question must be answered in two parts. Firstly, the planetary catastrophes, as you may call them, are a symptom of the difficult harvest, rather than a consciously programmed catalyst for the harvest. Thus, we do not concern ourselves with it, for it is random in respect to conscious catalyst, such as we may make available. The second portion is this: the results of the random catalyst of what you call the earth changes are also random. Thus, we may see possibility vortices going towards positive and negative. However, it will be as it will be. The true opportunities for conscious catalyst are not a function of the earth changes, but of the result of the seniority system of incarnations, which at the time of the harvest has placed in incarnation those whose chances of using life experiences to become harvestable are the best. Questioner: is the seniority system also used in the service to self side for becoming harvestable on that side? What? Ra: I am Ra. This is correct. You may ask one more full question at this time. Questioner: what I would like for you to do is list all the major mechanisms designed to provide catalytic experience that do not include interaction with other self. That is the first part. Ra: I am Ra. We grasp from this question that you realize that the primary mechanism for catalytic experience in third density is other self. The list of other catalytic influences: firstly, the Creator's universe; secondly, the self.